Times are changing. It's time to train not by the job role, but by the impact of change your team members are experiencing. Hello, leaders and change makers. Welcome back. My name is Golden, founder of House of Gold Refining Academy. And today you're entering your next best phase of refining change. This series is a part of my certification journey as an organizational change management practitioner with CCL Canada. So let's refine change and make you unshakable. Quick recap. Last episode, we got really in tune with what the brain was, understanding what flight, fight, and freeze was all about, and use a 60-second reset method to help you and your teams align with change and not fear it. So we're going to take all that and we're going to direct it towards a people plan. Before we get started, I really want you to understand that your experiences is definitely in alignment with everything that I'm talking about. I'm sure that you worked at corporations, teams, and projects, even just in school, and something was off in a point of time. When I was in the company as an employee, we all had that moment when like 3 people left the team or even just 1 person left the team, the whole dynamic and culture of the organization completely changed. One time I worked at an organization and we had the best manager. And then once that manager left, they trained an assistant manager and an employee. So that assistant manager ultimately got to be manager. And then I got bumped up into a newer role. Ultimately, we were just like a copy carbon of the manager that left. So it just made sense for us to level up in our positions. However, it just didn't feel right anymore. And this is because looking back, there wasn't a proper people plan. There wasn't an actual change management plan that's being implemented as change is happening. So change doesn't have to be a huge dramatic shift of, AI coming into the business and taking over all types of roles. It can literally just mean one person navigating outside of that role, leaving the company, and then changing the dynamic of team culture. There are so many realms of change, and I would love to hear your idea of change. What happened in your experience, in your role, in a project you had? Maybe it was even just a project dynamic or in school. I would love to know your experience on change and how they could have done it better and what exactly was off, what exactly was missing. I'll tell you another story. There was a time where I was working in head office and they actually hired a new employee into the team. The thing is there was a lot of animosity because a lot of people already in the company applied for that position that they were hiring outside for. So that new person came into a whole bunch of animosity, a whole bunch of just shame and shade and just like not good vibes. Because I wasn't in that department, I got to see the dynamic of how they treated that person, of how they isolated that person outside of meetings and trainings, just because that person was new and took over someone else's role that had tenured into a company. So there's some dynamics that happen like this. And to be honest, looking back, I was like, they could have honestly done better at introducing a new member in the team dynamic, especially when they know majority of the team wanted that position. So it's just having this awareness of what people want, what people need, and where people are in the company and where you want to build your company. So I've been doing this for over a decade, and I've noticed a lot of just gaps that have not been hit when it comes to keeping people feeling safe, supported, and secure in the position and company culture. So we're just going to get right into that on how that looks like and how you can create an unshakable plan so you know exactly who to train, how to train them, especially along the lines of their communication style. Let's talk about the people plan I'm mentioning is the impact map. The goal of an impact map is to see who's affected and by how much. This is extremely important so we can understand the type of communication they need and the type of training that they will need to be supported in moving forward. Companies really hit this mark, especially small businesses. I've seen a lot of small businesses go through change, and yes, there are so many moving parts in a small business, especially when the owners don't have a lot of experience and expertise and speciality in certain dynamics of a business and growing and scaling. However, this is why it's so important, especially as a small business, to understand where you need to get an expert to come in and fill the gaps. I feel like organizations of like 100+ employees, they understand to hire experts and consultants like myself in the company. However, whenever I stepped into a small business that had, say, 30, 20 employees working for them, they are all about penny pinching, but then eventually that just makes your business fall apart in the long run. So an impact map is going to help you understand what high impact is, what medium impact is, and what low impact is. And these 3 categories are going to expose who in your company is impacted most by this change that's coming. The reason why you want to do this is because when you map out the impact, you stop overtraining and communicating ineffectively to others. So huge organizations, they love to overtrain, and the wrong people as well, the people who may have different communication styles. Now, understanding that a new change is coming in, of course, the first thing you're going to think of in your head is ding, 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 I need to train them for the change. But before that, we need to understand how much are they impacted? What are their communication styles? How are we going to communicate this change to them effectively where they feel safe, supported, and secure? Now, a lot of departments, they do have change agents available where they are eager and ready for change, but it's always important to bring on an expertise, a specialist, to really navigate this change on a micro level so it can effectively be moved forward in an outcome that benefits the organization as a whole. So I have a playbook for you. If you are truly going through change and you want to do it right, then definitely contact me, and you'll have all the sheets and templates that I'm talking about available to you, and you can easily come back to this video and fill it out as we go through it together. So I see a lot of companies training for the role itself. So they'll do skills development, they'll do program development and help them through that curve of a skill that they may be lacking in. But every single time they overtrain, where the person who's changing actually gets more overwhelmed. They feel like there's so much on their plate and ultimately will want to get some type of raise from it. So if you're going to overtrain your employees, make sure you're going to also increase their pay, because it only makes sense that they're learning this new skill and they have so much bombardment of work overcoming them that they're gonna have to be compensated in some way. It is not nice to just overtrain an employee and then not give them the return of reward for their eagerness and them showing up for a change for the organization. So a lot of organizations think, well, you know what, we're training them, they're getting a new skill, like whatever. But at the end of the day, just because you're getting a new skill doesn't mean that it should not be rewarded and increase of salary and pay. Now, if you want as a business to decrease the amount of when you're putting in money for training and your employees, then you're going to want to follow this sheet, because it's definitely going to save you money. It's going to give your employees amazing peace of mind on this transition of change. So we're going to train by impact right now. If they have a high impact, you're going to want to go deep. You want it to be hands-on. You want them to have one-on-one support, and it has to be during office hours. Now, if it's a medium impact, they can just have focus workshops, and that's usually from 40 to 50 minutes. Now, if they have a low impact, you just want to have a brief 15 to 30 minute meeting and a one-pager to explain what's going on. Now, for your information only, it's for the other departments that aren't going to have any high, medium, or low impact, but they need to be aware of this change. And this can be done in a memo or email sent to everyone. Now, if you follow this rule, you're going to have right size enablement, you're going to save time and money, And you'll have faster adoption to the change with less burnout. And time again, I see everyone gathered in a meeting. A meeting will just look like someone talking and maybe going over a one-pager. But mind you, you probably have 5 people in that room that need more hands-on, deep training, or someone that just needed an email. So now this is where you kind of create that animosity of change, where you start to put people in situations that they naturally, instinctively don't belong in. So it's very, very important to understand your team members' communication style and deliver it to them in that way. Now, you may think and be highly attached to an outcome of how you want them to be trained for a result or outcome you see fitting in the alignment of the organization. But remember, this is people planning. This is refining change. We need to be considerate of everyone on the team that is showing up for the business every day in their role and expertise. It is not fair to have someone who needed a deep dive session simply just read an email and be expected to accept the change. It is not fair for someone to sit in a 1-hour meeting when all they needed to do was sit one-on-one with someone, have a Q&A, and really have a workshop and go deep into what that change may look like and training for that shift of change. It is not fair to have a meeting and gather everyone of different communication styles and simply just present and talk to them on a screen in a Zoom call and then tell them, go on about your merry day and accept this change. We need to be aware, empathetic, and considerate of other people's realms of reality and how they navigate life. The more in tune you are to this, the faster you're going to adopt change and the easier and more happier your teams are going to be. So there are some communication frameworks I'm going to share in the description below. If you ever need some ideas of how to go about navigating the type of communication styles your teams need, definitely reach out. We can have a strategy session and hash that out, or you can just simply click the link below in the templates that I have in the Refining Change Toolkit. All of that's there as well. So if you ever need any deep insight, then definitely click this resource and embed it into your structure. So let's talk about the types of communication styles. There's people who are very factual. They need metrics, they need deadlines, they need dashboards, they need sheets. They just need the explanation of the facts at hand. Then there's people who like stories. Their mind is very symbolic. So if you navigate the change or what's happening through a story, a training through a story, then they are more likely going to grasp the details of that and allow themselves to support that change. There's other people that need structure. They need steps. They need timelines. They need people they can talk to at these different phases. They need owners that they can navigate with into this change. People who are more structured, they really respect protocol, policy, training, deep dives, workshops. Like, they want it all. They want all the structure, and it's supposed to be chronological to pivot them into their next best phase. So you really want to prioritize high and medium impact roles. These folks are going to get more frequent touch points. They're going to get more access to knowledge, resources, very high touch. I've been in organizations where there was such a huge change. All they did was train, but there was no one to actually ask questions. There was no one to go to and have one-on-one Q&As with. There was no one to really go to and speak with because they were all dealing with their other day-to-day roles and responsibilities. You don't want to just leave someone with a training and think that's good enough. You don't want to leave someone with a self-paced a workshop and that's just good enough. Sometimes you need to have a Q&A, bring in everyone on a meeting and just talk about everything that's going on, anything that's coming up. Make space for people's curiosity, confusion, and allow them to feel safe and secure while doing so. The thing is, what I notice is the more support you give your team members when it comes to access of information and resources, the happier they feel going through that change. Like, they feel supported. So they're really happy that, oh, wow, this person cares about me. This person wants me to stay. I don't have to fear losing my job eventually during this change. I'm getting all the resources and attention and support I need. And remember, there's other people, again, that just need an email. And you just need to leave them alone with the change. They'll figure that out. So I'll talk about a recent change management timeline I've been on and then supported on an organization. This is when they were embedding AI in the organization. So the coordinator of the organization was high impact. What we did with them was have a 90-minute lab. We also had training during office hours, and we also had a communication style, which was structure. So the coordinator was a very structured communication styles, and this is what we hashed out for them to pivot on the refining change journey. The next one was the team lead. They were so fun. I really loved their personality. They were very fact-based, so you just had to get to the point with them. They were not about fluff and stories and structures and all these things. They just wanted it straight to them. So they were medium impact, and we just had a 60-minute workshop with them and just showed them what before the change looked like and then how the change would look like after, and they were good to go. We also incorporated some meetings with the finance analysts. They were very factual based, so very fun to work with, straight to the point, no fluff, no filter. We just had a 20-minute brief with them and a one-pager, and they just got what was going on in an instant. Now, the HR department, which I totally love working with time and time again, they had a story communication style. So that was fun for me to create this whole presentation branded with a story, with a hook, some myths that might come up, some limitations that might come up. I'm really good at storytelling because I understand the psychology of shifting the mind into change. And so that was really fun to work with the HR, and they ultimately learned a lot of tips from me as well, so they can start to embed that in their team culture. But ultimately, it was just for your information. So they just needed that awareness. So I told that story through an email, but it was a presentation PDF, and it just walked them through what was going on. So are you aware of how impact actually changes how you train and how it is the driving factor of success in a change organization? Do you see how impact, not the job title, actually shifts people into change? Once you understand the training they need and the communication style they have, you can get right to it and allow change to just flow at an accelerated way. So in 15 minutes, you can actually build your impact map, your people change manual. Again, I have a resource of this templates that everything I'm talking about, and so it just makes it easier for you to implement and have some awareness before the change actually happens. Number one thing you want to do is you want to do this first. You don't want to have any meetings with anyone talking about the change. You don't want to introduce that change happening. You just want to do all this for your information so you know how that looks like. So let's do a little recap. We have your impact map with your roles, your rationale, and the level of impact that they have. Then you're going to have your training plan. Remember, every communication style requires a different type of training plan. You're also going to want to have a communications matrix. So beside that role, beside that training plan, you want to understand how you're going to communicate this change to them. And a bonus in my resources for the templates is you're going to have a risk log and a readiness pulse. So a risk log is really going to show you all the risks that might pop up so you can navigate them if it ever does happen. Whether you're a small business, a founder, whether you're a startup or a huge organization, you're going to need to prepare for change again and again in your timeline of operations. So I want you to grab the Refining Change Toolkit. You get your impact map, you get your training plan, your communications plan. You also get a one-page reset on how to navigate fight, flight, and freeze when the mind gets really overwhelmed. And that link is in the description below. Now, as I'm going on my timeline of getting certified as an organizational change management practitioner, I'm going to be sharing with you gems along the way. So this is only episode 2, and we have so much work that has been done. We have been exposed to such new information on how to view things. So I'm really excited on sharing with you next week on what I learned and how you can apply it to your business, your teams, heck, even your personal life. This is honestly such great information because it has a background in neuroscience, because it has science-based techniques, along with corporate proven frameworks that will help you shift your team and yourself in a change that's accelerated for growth. If you know anyone that could benefit from this information, definitely share this video with them. This is something that has been overlooked in over a decade of my experience. I find these little tiny gaps people miss, and that really causes overwhelm in a company. Your business should work for you, not you working for it day in, day out, solving problems. That is just not the way to be. So if you are ready to build your legacy company, your legacy team, definitely reach out. We can start to have strategies and sessions in place that helps you navigate the timeline that you are on. Where you are now and where you want to be is completely available to you. We just got to map out the middle. And with that, I have created House of Golde, a refining and growth consultancy to support you from where you are to where you want to be, navigating you through the abyss of change, of refining, and really figuring out what your next steps looks like. So if this resonated with you, if you know you need someone on your team to really help you with the micro steps, you have the big vision, you have the ambition, then definitely reach out, because I am here for your success and I am so excited to see it. Until then, you take care.